At the moment, the Birlings have all had a good dinner. They are celebrating a special occasion and are pleased with themselves.
Giving us the port, Edna. That's right.
He pushes it towards Eric.
You ought to like this port, Gerald. As a matter of fact, Finchley told me it's exactly the same port your father gets from him.
Oh, then it'll be all right. The governor prides himself on being a good judge of port. I don't pretend to know much about it.
I should jolly well think not, Gerald. I'd hate you to know all about port, like one of these purple-faced old men.
Here, I'm not a purple-faced old man.
No, not yet. But then you don't know all about port, do you?
Noticing that his wife has not taken any.
Now then, Sybil, you must take a little tonight. Special occasion, you know, eh?
Yes, go on, Mummy. You must drink our health.
Very well, then. Just a little thank you.
To Edna, who's about to go out with the tray.
All right, Edna. I'll ring from the drawing room when we want coffee, probably in about half an hour.
Yes, ma'am. Edna goes out. They now have all the glasses filled. Birling beams at them and clearly relaxes.
Well. This is very nice, very nice. Good dinner too, Sybil. Tell cook from me.
Absolutely first class.
Arthur, you're not supposed to say such things.
Oh, come. I'm treating Gerald like one of the family. I'm sure he won't object.
Go on, Gerald. Just you object.
Oh, wouldn't dream of it. In fact, I insist upon being one of the family now. I've been trying long enough, haven't I? Haven't I? You know I have.
Of course she does.
Yes, except for all last summer when you never came near me and I wondered what had happened to you.
Well, and I've told you. I was awfully busy at the works all that time.
Yes, that's what you say.
Now, Sheila, don't tease him. When you're married, you'll realise that men with important work to do sometimes have to spend nearly all their time and energy on their businesses. You'll have to get used to it, just as I had.
I don't believe I will. So, you be careful.
Oh, I will.
Eric suddenly guffaws. His parents look at him.
Now what's the joke?
I don't know, really. Suddenly I felt I just had to laugh.
You're squiffy.
I'm not.
What an expression, Sheila. Really, the things you girls pick up these days.
If you think that's the best she can do.
Don't be an ass, Eric.
Now stop it, you two. Arthur, what about this famous toast of yours?
Yes, of course. Well, Gerald, I know you agreed that we should only have this quiet little family party. It's a pity Sir George and Lady Croft can't be with us, but they're abroad, so it can't be helped. As I told you, they sent me a very nice cable. Couldn't be nicer. I'm not sorry that we're celebrating quietly, like this.
Much nicer, really.
Well, I agree.
So do I, but it makes speech making more difficult.
Well, don't do any. We'll drink their health and have done with it.
No, we won't. It's one of the happiest nights of my life. And one day, I hope, Eric, when you've a daughter of your own, you'll understand why. Gerald, I'm going to tell you frankly, without any pretenses, that your engagement to Sheila means a tremendous lot to me. She'll make you happy, and I'm sure you'll make her happy. You're just the kind of son-in-law I always wanted. Your father and I have been friendly rivals in business for some time now, though Crofts Limited are both older and bigger than Birling and Company. And now you've brought us together. And perhaps we may look forward to the time when Crofts and Birlings are no longer competing, but are working together for lower costs and higher prices.
Here, here. And I think my father would agree to that.
Now, Arthur, I don't think you ought to talk business on an occasion such as this.
Neither do I. All wrong.
Oh, quite so. I agree with you. I only mentioned it in passing. What I did want to say was that Sheila's a lucky girl. And I think you're a pretty fortunate young man too, Gerald.
Oh, I know I am. This once, anyway.
Raising his glass.
So, here's wishing the pair of you the very best that life can bring. Gerald and Sheila.
Raising her glass, smiling.
Yes, Gerald. Yes, Sheila, darling. Our congratulations and very best wishes.
Well, thank you.
Eric.
All the best. She's got a nasty temper sometimes, but she's not bad really. Good old Sheila.
Chump, I can't drink to this. When do I drink?
Well, you could drink to me.
All right then. I drink to you, Gerald.
For a moment, they look at each other.
Thank you. And I drink to you, and hope I can make you as happy as you deserve to be.
You be careful, or I'll start weeping.
Well, perhaps this will help to stop it.
He produces a ring case.
Oh, Gerald, you've got it. Is it the one you wanted me to have?
Giving the case to her,
Yes, the very one.
taking out the ring.
Oh, it's wonderful. Look, Mummy. Isn't it a beauty? Oh, darling. Mwah.
She kisses Gerald hastily.
Steady the buffs.
Well, I think it's perfect. Now I really feel engaged.
So you ought, darling. It's a lovely ring. Be careful with it.
Careful. I'll never let it go out of my sight for an instant.
Well, it came just at the right moment. That was clever of you, Gerald. Now, Arthur, if you've got no more to say, I think Sheila and I'd better go into the drawing room and leave you men.
I just want to say this.
Noticing that Sheila is still admiring her ring,
Are you listening, Sheila? This concerns you too. And after all, I don't often make speeches at you.
I'm sorry, Daddy. Actually, I was listening.
she looks attentive, as they all do. He holds them for a moment before continuing.
I'm delighted about this engagement. And I hope it won't be too long before you're married. And I want to say this. There's a good deal of silly talk about these days, but, and I speak as a hard-headed businessman who has to take risks and know what he's about. I say, you can ignore all this silly pessimistic talk. When you marry, you'll be marrying at a very good time. Yes, a very good time. And soon it'll be an even better time. Why, last month, just because the miners came out on strike, there's a lot of wild talk about possible labour trouble in the near future. Don't worry. We've passed the worst of it. We employers at last are coming together to see that our interests and the interests of capital are properly protected. And we're in for a time of steadily increasing prosperity.
I believe you're right, sir.
What about war?
Glad you mentioned it, Eric. Yes, I'm coming to that. Just because the Kaiser makes a speech or two, or a few German officers have too much to drink and begin talking nonsense, you'll hear some people say that war's inevitable. And to that I say, fiddlesticks! The Germans don't want war. Nobody wants war except some half-civilized folks in the Balkans. And why? There's too much at stake these days. Everything to lose and nothing to gain by war.
Yes, I know, but still.
Oh, just let me finish, Eric. You've a lot to learn yet, and I'm talking as a hard-headed, practical man of business. And I say there isn't a chance of war. The world's developing so fast, it'll make war impossible. Look at the progress we're making. In a year or two, we'll have aeroplanes that'll be able to go anywhere. And look at the way the automobile's making headway. Bigger, faster all the time. And then ships. Why? A friend of mine went over this new liner last week. The Titanic. She sails next week. 46,800 tons. 46,800 tons. New York in 5 days, and every luxury, and unsinkable. Absolutely unsinkable. That's what you've got to keep your eye on. Facts like that. Progress like that. And not a few German officers talking nonsense, and a few scaremongers here making a fuss about nothing. Now, you three young people, just listen to this. And remember what I'm telling you now. In 20 or 30 years' time, let's say in 1940, you may be giving a little party like this. Your son or daughter might be getting engaged, and I tell you, by that time you'll be living in a world that'll have forgotten all these capital versus labour agitations and all these silly little war scares. There'll be peace and prosperity and rapid progress everywhere. Well, except, of course, in Russia, which will always be behind, naturally.
Arthur.
As Mrs. Birling shows signs of interrupting.
Yes, my dear, I know I'm talking too much, but you youngsters just remember what I said. We can't all let these Bernard Shaws and H.G. Welleses do all the talking. We hard-headed, practical businessmen must say something sometime, and we don't guess. We've had experience, and we know.
Rising, the others rise.
Yes, of course, dear. Well, don't keep Eric in here too long, Eric. Gerald in here too long. Eric, I want you a minute.
She and Sheila and Eric go out. Birling and Gerald sit down again.
Cigar?
Oh, no, thanks. Can't really enjoy them.
Taking one himself.
Ah, you don't know what you're missing. I like a good cigar. Oh, help yourself.
Thank you.
Birling lights his cigar, and Gerald, who has lit a cigarette, helps himself to port and then pushes the decanter to Birling.
Thanks. By the way, there's something I'd like to mention, in strict confidence, while we're by ourselves. I have an idea that your mother, Lady Croft, while she doesn't object to my girl, feels you might have done better for yourself socially. No, Gerald, that's all right. Don't blame her. She comes from an old country family, landed people and so forth. And so it's only natural. But what I wanted to say is this. There's a fair chance I might find my way into the next honours list. Just a knighthood, of course.
Oh, I say, congratulations.
Thanks. It's a bit early for that, so don't say anything. But I've had a hint or two. You see, I was Lord Mayor here 2 years ago when royalty visited us, and I've always been regarded as a sound, useful party man. So, well, I gather there's a very good chance of a knighthood, so long as we behave ourselves. You know, don't get into any police court or start a scandal, eh?
Well, you seem to be a nice, well-behaved family.
Well, we think we are.
So if that's the only obstacle, sir, I think you might as well accept my congratulations now.
Oh, no, I couldn't do that, and don't say anything yet.
Not even to my mother? I know she'd be delighted.
Well, when she comes back, you might drop a hint to her, and you can promise her that we'll try to keep out of trouble during the next few months.
Eric enters.
What's the joke? Start telling stories?
No. Do you want another glass of port?
Sitting down.
Yes, please.
Takes decanter and helps himself.
Mother says we mustn't stay too long, but I don't think it matters. I left them talking about clothes again. You'd think a girl had never had any clothes before she gets married. Women are potty about them.
Yes, well, you've got to remember, my boy, that clothes mean something quite different to a woman. Not just something to wear, and not only something to make them look prettier, but, well, a sort of sign or token of their self-respect.
That's true.
Yes, I remember.
Well, what do you remember?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Sounds a bit fishy to me.
Yes, you don't know what some of these boys get up to nowadays. More money to spend and time to spare than I had when I was Eric's age. They worked as hard in those days and kept us short of cash. Thought even then we broke out, had a bit of fun sometimes.
Oh, I bet you did.
But this is the point. I don't want to lecture you two young fellows again, but what so many of you don't seem to understand now, when things are so much easier, is that a man has to make his own way, has to look after himself and his family too, of course, when he has one. And so long as he does that, he won't come to much harm. By the way some of these cranks talk and write now, you'd think everybody has to look after everybody else, as if we were all mixed up together like bees in a hive, community and all that nonsense. But take my word for it, you youngsters, and I've learnt in the good hard school of experience that a man has to mind his own business and look after himself and his own, and
Okay, and that brings to the end the first part of the reading. We're just going to discuss briefly now some of the things that we actually read through there. So, Mr. Birling, what can you tell us about what you've been reading about there?
So, the main thing that this particular part of the play looks at is establishing this idea of Birling as a capitalist, showing that idea of him almost being a mouthpiece for capitalism and the ideas of capitalism. That speech just then at the end where he's talking about looking after himself and his own family is kind of a core idea for capitalism, that it was about improving your own well-being, your own life, and that of your families, your own standing and position in society and your families, through the acquisition of more wealth, of getting more money, and when he was talking about the knighthood, sort of a higher position in society. And that's basically what that is establishing, that this is a very capitalist sort of character in a very capitalist family at the beginning, but in the bigger speech, sort of in the middle, there's quite a lot of dramatic irony. A lot of things that he talks about, we know from looking back at history, are inaccurate or wrong, and what that does is it sort of undermines the things that Birling's saying and undermines the things that he stands for. So, for example, like
I say, so if he's a mouthpiece for capitalism, the fact that some of the things that he's saying are proved wrong gives an indication about how we're supposed to, as an audience, receive that information. We're supposed to be a bit skeptical about other things he says, because the things he says that are supposedly facts, we know are wrong. Yeah.
So a big obvious example is where he talks about this luxury liner, the Titanic, that's unsinkable, absolutely unsinkable. You know, Priestley gets him to repeat that phrase, that unsinkable phrase, when this is obviously a very famous example of a ship that sank on its first voyage. So, like you're saying, that kind of undermines that part of his speech. So how can we really trust everything else that he says? And if he represents capitalism, how can we really then trust as an audience the ideas that capitalism stands for?
Yeah, lovely. And the point we'll end on really is the fact that the doorbell rang just at the point you were in mid-flow then, and that becomes quite significant, that your windy approach, your sort of full of yourself pompous discussion has been punctuated by the arrival of someone else into the household, which we'll cover in the next reading. Okay, well, I think we'll call it a day there. Thank you.